You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. Welcome to the show. The interview subject prepared for you on this episode is James Norbert Ivanyi, one of my favourite guitarists of all time, I must say. That's happened rather quickly, courtesy of his new album for 2020. It's out now. Omen Faustum is the name of it. So here he is, James Norbert Ivanyi. Let's have a listen to what he has to say about this killer album, Omen Faustum. Let's go.
I spoke to Pliny yesterday, and I mentioned you.
Oh, that's awesome. He lives just down the road a few streets.
He mentioned that, and it was one of the points that I made at the end of our conversation that I find it very interesting that two of not just Australia's but the world's most accomplished and interesting instrumental guitarists share the same postcode, yet rarely bump into each other. He said that you guys just bumped into each other at NAMM, which is 20,000 k's away from where you both live, such as the busy lifestyle that you both lead. But I just find that fascinating that this isn't I am a patriotic bloke, but this isn't any patriotic fervour here. I just find it so interesting that you both share the same postcode, you're both Australian, and you're both making music that is the envy of the world at the moment. Because I feel, listening to both of you, as I've done a lot of over the last couple of weeks, there's something almost intrinsically and uniquely Australian about what you guys are doing, because I'm just not hearing what you guys do anywhere else in the world.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Thank you. That's a very lovely compliment. And
no worries.
Yeah, it is just one of those funny things. Like, I mean, we talk, often, via, the phone and stuff. We're in the same areas like daily, and we usually joke around about how is it that we haven't just like run into each other daily kind of thing. We see each other in the US and never here, which is totally bizarre.
Well, Sydney's a big place, we know, and I know I was born in Sydney actually, so I know all about it. My mother still lives down there.
Cool.
Every time I go back, I've been out of there quite a long time now, and every time I go back, that place just expands. It becomes busier. So I don't know how you, for starters, being a musician, I know it's changed a lot now. Actually, I started this podcast 4 years ago, and mate, I have to tell you, I hardly spoke to anybody from Sydney, and that wasn't that I didn't have my feelers out there and didn't want to speak to people. I think the first band I spoke to was like a rock band called Lily or something like that, I think they're called. Anyway. But,
yeah, I have heard of them.
Yeah, but I notice these days, because to me, Sydney is AC/DC in excess.
Yeah.
Even I know Silverchair and Newcastle, but it's close by. It's that vicinity. I know Melbourne likes to think of itself as the music capital of Australia because the industry certainly might be down there. But I've always felt that some of the most fervent talent makes its way through Sydney, and I think you guys are just sort of part of that, And I'll talk about this album here of yours because I heard of you because I interviewed Pliny about 3 years ago or so, and I noticed that you were on a tour with him.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
I think that was his first tour ever, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, and I thought I better check this guy out, but just with the nature of the beast, things go quickly and. You're with Chris is doing your PR these days. So Chris sent through some stuff only recently, and
right.
I got it, and I thought, I'd always been wanting to check you out, and I got it on, and it was one of those. Why haven't I been listening to you for a long time now? Because I went back and checked out all of your other stuff, and I'm enamored with it, as you can tell. Sorry to piss in your pocket so much, but when I like listening to an artist's material, I have to give you that feedback because it is sincere, it is genuine, and I know how difficult it is crafting a career performing and playing music. You've got to watch every penny, and there's a lot of sharks out there in the business that try to bullshit you and lie to you about what they think that they can do for you and stuff. And ultimately, the strength of your music is your music is so strong. It's just standalone, and people will find it regardless. But you still got to pay the rent and put food on the table and all the rest of it. But my broader point here is the thing that I love about your playing very specifically, man, is that you've got some front funk and groove going on, and I love that. Okay, and a lot of your material also sounds like it could be soundtrack music because it's incredibly evocative and it's extremely visual. And on this album, Omen Faustum, I reckon I listened to it for a week straight every morning. I get up at about 5:30 to get the kids organised for school and put it on top of my iPhone, on top of the water cooler, and it just plays. And the kids are always a good judge of things, because I listen to a lot of pretty heavy stuff, and they hate that. But man, they let me listen to you as much as I wanted to. So you've got to take,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
a
Made
compliment.
the venerable child test. Passed it. Excellent.
Past it, indeed. And sometimes that's the only time I get to, because I'm writing a couple of books, and that's sometimes the only time I get to listen to music is very early in the morning before my mind starts thinking about my author stuff. But look, I've said a lot in there. I appreciate that. So thanks for listening to me give you all that feedback. But look, have you received a lot of feedback similar to mine? Because I hope you have, because I think what you've done here with the album truly is a remarkable statement.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I have. Like, I've definitely detected a kind of overwhelmingly positive response, which has been really nice. And it kind of performed bigger and better than all of my previous work. So all of those good things kind of came together, and I'm really proud of it. And it's been an overwhelmingly kind of just joyous experience, and also an interesting one, releasing it this year, like a lot of other artists who are kind of used to the release and tour model to some extent. I'm kind of used to that as well. But yeah, on the whole, it's been great. Really, really good reception. Really thrilled.
Who did you decide to work with? So you mentioned you got your bassist there, but I'm a bass player. I play guitar too, but my stage instrument is bass, or guitar too. But my choice will always be bass. But the percussion's outstanding, man. I listened to it with these AirPods, and man, you've got the balance just perfect with it. Did you write the percussion pieces on whatever app that you might use, and then just give it to a great drummer that can interpret your stuff, or how'd that go?
Well, it's a funny story. So I program all my own drums while I'm writing and recording all my stuff, including this record. And that's really just so I can kind of generate a more complete image of what it's going to sound like at the end. And once I'm finished with the record, as has been the case since 2015, since about the Matter Circumvention, I just send the album without any of my programmed drum stuff on it to David Horgan, who has done the drums on my record since 2015. And so he never hears anything that I do, which is pretty interesting. And we've just worked together so long. We go back to a previous band that I did called Paradigm. And so when I left that group to start doing a solo guitar kind of thing, he essentially came along with me and kept working on music together. He doesn't tour with me because he is a doctor now and has young kids and just kind of doesn't have time to do that stuff, but makes the time to still do the records with me.
Fantastic,
So the drums, all credit to David Horgan, who is also an incredible audio kind of engineer as well. So he really kind of handles most of the stuff on the drum side, including a lot of the mixing and balancing, and we kind of work together at the end to get everything right. So he is Liam Horgan's brother, who is my live bass player and also contributed some bass stuff to the record as well. So they're just kind of like the power brother team, which is awesome.
Nice.
Bo Golden contributed some stuff to the opening track called Cycleloop, and he's amazing. Speaking of Silverchair, he plays keys and musically directs for Daniel Johns these days, I believe. So he's awesome and managed to make some time to do some stuff as well. But yeah, as is kind of usual, I just kind of did everything else.
Yeah, well, it's always that quandary, I think, about bringing people in. Well, I anticipated it was probably early on for you that understood what you were trying to achieve. And then when you get to a point when you trust them and you got people that understand what you're trying to do as you progress as well, not just what you were doing, you hold on to them, don't you? So it sounds like you've got a great team around you. Definitely
been, as far as my solo albums are concerned, I've kind of been working with the same people for a while. And I think we've all pushed each other and grown. It's a pretty special thing when you have that.
And when you're writing material, because to me the finished product sounds like a musical puzzle, because it does take a few listens for everything to sync. Actually, more than a few listens, it's got to say. I feel like I've just touched the surface with Omen Faustum, but all the best albums are like that. They stay with you, and they keep you engaged, and they keep on rewarding through multiple listens. So, when you're writing material, is there any outcome in mind, or do you just sort of channel whatever is in the ether and just hope it sort of comes through on your guitar?
So yeah, the opposite of that. So I actually kind of I spend lots of time thinking and imagining how everything will be well in advance. So I kind of adopt what I call the linear writing method. So if my intention is to write something, I always try to imagine the very first part of the song, so the intro, if you will. I don't tend to write riffs and then build songs around riffs or anything like that. I really just try to get something really clearly built up, the image of whatever the musical idea is in my mind first, and then the challenge is to try and be faithful to that when actually putting it into Pro Tools or bringing it to life, if you will. And from that point, once I have some musical information, I'll kind of stop and just listen to that for a day or so, and the next thing will always be like kind of hidden in that verse that you did. Like I just let the song go where it wants to go. I just kind of write everything out in my mind. So it's a process of sitting down, trying to bring the thing to life as truthfully to how I imagined it, and then spending it also listening to that and either making revisions or dreaming up the next bit, trying to get a nice clear mental image of it before starting to do it.
Trying to get a nice clear mental image. I get you. Okay, so you're a born guitarist, so you're someone who's put on this earth to play guitar. You can tell that just listening to you. Do you find
that's funny that you say that, because I to this day still feel like a pretend guitar player, because I actually started playing drums first, and so deep down inside I still feel like, or I still wish I was a drummer, but I ended up picking the guitar up in kind of late high school. And
is that right? Late high school, yeah.
Yeah, I guess kind of late by like when people discover guitar standards. Yeah, I think I was maybe 17 or 18 years old when I first picked it up.
That is late, especially for what you've managed to achieve to this date. I mean, that means, not assuming your age, but you've probably not been playing it longer than a decade then.
Oh yeah, well I am 84 years old, so it's been a while, Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Most people pick it up when they're maybe not kids, but 10, 11, 12 sort of thing. That's when the interest usually bites. But so you were playing drums at that age, were you?
Yeah. I was like my father was a drummer, and so I kind of caught the bug off, his enthusiasm for the drums, and I started playing drums. And I guess I've always been really, really into music. More than anything else from a very young age. But so I guess that kind of plays into when I picked up the guitar, I was just straight in and forever in, 24/7. There was no kind of pushing and pulling period that I guess most young people kind of go through to see if it sticks. It just immediately stuck, and kind of haven't done anything else since.
So you're 17 or 18 when you picked it up. And as we both know, a career as a musician is literally it's sort of behind becoming an astronaut in terms of the likelihood of it actually happening. But you're doing it. So did you get a lot of encouragement when you decided you want to go down that pathway?
Yeah, really luckily. I kind of grew up in a semi artistic household, and my mother has always been really supportive. So around the time that I picked up guitar was around the time a whole bunch of chaos was kind of happening in my young man life, and I treated guitar as an escape to that. So I kind of stopped going to school, and there were signs that I was really just only going to just do music to escape from everything that was going on. And to my mother's credit, she kind of saw that and immediately enrolled me into a music school. Which was the thing that made it stick, because I met a lot of people there who felt same way I did about music. And so it really normalized this idea of just wanting to be a musician. At a time where, at that point in your life, you can go anywhere, you can do anything, you've got all kinds of pressures pulling you around. So that was good for me, just to kind of normalize that experience. And yeah, so, I did music and bands and touring and writing records and all that stuff, all while maintaining various full-time jobs, only up until about 5 years ago. So about 5 years ago, I left my last job and have been doing music full-time. So kind of a slow burn, I guess.
Yeah, and do you find that there is greater interest in your music offshore than within Australia? Or has that been the thing that's allowed you to, say, become the professional musician you are today?
I think it's pretty even. Like, I definitely had some lucky breaks along the way. One of them definitely being, around 2014, I suppose. Yeah, maybe 2014. I got picked up by Sir Guitars, which is the company that I still am playing, and they brought me out to the US, and we did some videos, and those videos were really popular and exposed me to a lot of US people. And then the following year, I came back and I played at one of their events that they were holding with some pretty big guitar names, like Scott Henderson, who's a kind of hero of mine, Pete Thorne, Andy Wood, and all those guys. Mm. And so that kind of just, I guess, exposed me to a lot of the US market and the broader world. So I had some lucky breaks along the way, but I think the love here in Australia has been just as good. Really positive, and the scene here for instrumental guitar music is really amazing. All the tours that I've done here, and all the shows that I've gone to in that kind of world have just been incredible, really enthusiastic, with a lot of love for it here. So I think we have a really good thing here. I've certainly felt that here.
No, I agree with you, and that became apparent to me when I went to see Animals as Leaders in 2017 at the Triffid here in Brisbane. And it was packed, man. I'm talking, there's a couple of thousand people in there watching a band that, so I'm 42, so my grounding years were the 90s when nobody cared, really, truly, about instrumental music and heavy metal. It was literally like, you could buy like cassette tapes and CDs for $5 at Red Eye or up here at Skinny's or what have you.
I remember many Red Eye run back in the day.
Yeah, I used to go there too a lot, and I remember picking up old Napalm Death albums at the same time I'd pick up Satriani albums, and Yngwie. Yngwie was always my champion. I picked up just about all of his albums secondhand. It was a great time to get into music, especially when CDs back then. There was, of course, no streaming services, but I agree with you, man. I think the way that it's been revitalised, and I don't know what has done it, but I'm just so grateful that it's happened, because it's brought some academic rigor back to music, what you're doing. Do you understand what I mean? Like, it actually challenges you as a listener. It's not like I'm not peeping shit on Dave Grohl and Foo Fighters, but sometimes I don't understand some of these massive bands and how they become big, because it sounds ordinary to me and it's not challenging. But I listen to your stuff, and it feels like as though you are, this is going to sound a bit off when I say this, but I feel like you're respecting the listener, because you're challenging. Does that make sense? You're not actually leaving anything off the table. It's all there. And you're inviting the listener to come into your world and to figure out what you're trying to do. And that was what I was making my point earlier about it being like a puzzle, because that's why I find I have to listen to your music a lot of the time with headphones on, to sort of hear the lovely, especially the bass dives that your bassist that you mentioned there is doing. It's on the I play a 5-string too, and I can hear it, and you only hear that stuff. But it's not just that he does that and that you want that in there, it's the placement of it. It might be once or twice in a song that it comes in, but after a few listens, you get rewarded constantly by all these, that term is Easter egg, I suppose, isn't it? Even though I don't, that Easter egg sort of thing with music. So that's what I find. And I think we've just sort of arrived at a point potentially where listeners are now ready for people like yourself and Pliny, and ready at a point where it's actually commercially viable, which is the key point. Commercially viable for you guys to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I certainly never thought I would be in this excellent position where I get to do this, and it sustains, a lifestyle that's good and all that and all of that. That certainly was never the end game, and I never would have thought it would have worked out that way. But I think particularly, let's just say, in the last decade, that the instrumental guitar scene has just exploded. Particularly with the advent of the internet and connectivity and all of that stuff. It's just been really awesome. When I put out my first record, I had no concept of the instrumental scene. I didn't know there was one. I wasn't really familiar with solo guitarists and that kind of thing. I was like right in the metal world. That was my thing. I was playing in progressive tech metal bands. So it was really cool to put out that record and then suddenly see that there was this whole scene that was really emerging, and particularly over the last 10 years, it's just skyrocketed. It's gone insane. There's so many amazing solo guitarists doing amazing things, and I think what's more amazing is the musicality level. It's not just kind of shred guitar over tracks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guitarists like really expressing themselves in just the most unbelievably musical ways, and that's awesome. Like you pointed out, even regardless of how niche, and my thing is incredibly niche because ultimately I do it for me. I'm trying to challenge myself with my own music. So it's cool that you can do stuff that's incredibly small and have a little slice of the audience out there, but it's still enough to sustain a career, which is just wonderful.
Hey, so you mentioned earlier when you were a young fella that things weren't easier. God knows, I remember those days myself, 17, 18, 19. They were probably the most challenging time that I think we'll go through as young fellas, But is there what's been the most significant challenge that you feel like sharing that you've had to sort of meet and overcome in order to become and be a full-time and a professional musician?
Oh, I mean, there's so many. Like, obviously, I had a whole bunch of family stuff. Like, my father died when I was young, and that was pretty hardcore. Just trying to do music when you're a young man in a world where, like, everything around you is shaping you to do something else. Do something safe and secure, or you have pressures from friends and that kind of thing. So there's lots of those challenges that have presented themselves along the way, but music has always been the answer. It's always been the answer and the way through it for me. And I guess that's still going to this day.
Yeah, because your music manages to say a lot without actually saying anything at all, if you know what I'm saying, because obviously you don't have a vocalist, but you feel like when you listen to your stuff that you've received some information of some kind, like as if it's encoded into the music itself. It's in the binary code of the analog signal or whatever it might be. That's or analog if you've got it on vinyl, of course. But it's coming through, and you feel like as though. And I do find that with great instrumental music because you saw the Instagram post, of course, but I compared you to the great Steve Kahn, who was easily one of my all-time favorite guitarists. The New York guy, and he's one of those guys that can play sort of 2 or 3 notes and says more in the space of 30 seconds with those 3 notes than a shredder can do over half an hour. But I think that comes down to this natural gift that you've got and your ability to communicate through that. So that's what I was saying earlier about you being a born guitarist, and I always it doesn't matter whether somebody becomes a guitarist or a painter, as long as they're being creative and they're expressing themselves. Because I make this point a lot on the podcast that people like you and Pliny, you inspire people to create. And right now, certainly in my lifetime, in my 42 years, there's never been a more important time for that to happen. Because so many distractions because of social media and American politics, we know, and of course American politics and the ideas behind it tend to colonize our way of thinking, and then you get the the Twitter bullshit and all the rest of it, and just the polarization and stuff. But there's voices like yours that seem to come through and remind everybody that hang on a sec, you can be creatively expressive, and that's far more than bloody arguing over something that we've hardly got any skin in the game for. And I think maybe that's probably another theory that I've got as to why people like yourself have managed to find an audience, because people are fed up, man. They're fed up with the over politicization of things and being told that they're pieces of shit when they've done nothing wrong, or
Sure.
all of the language and stuff that we've now got to buy into. And I'll come out and say it: the intense focus on political correctness that we've all got to live through at the moment. And people, I mean, I can tell you, not just how many musicians I've spoken to, over 600, well over 600 at this point, man. The amount of times this comes up, being asked, it's off the record, don't include this, man. People are fucking sick of it,
Yeah.
And I think music. My broader point is music is allowing us, and music that you're producing is a lightning rod for people to reconnect with their true selves in a lot of ways.
Oh, that's wonderful. I mean, if that's a byproduct of it, then that's amazing. And from where I sit, it's I feel all of that as well. Of course, the discourse is palpable and it's real, and you can feel it. Being alive today, I think anyone who's connected to the world in any way can feel it. For me, working on music is it's kind of an escapism tool. It's a way of just tuning out the world and focusing, and so hopefully that helps translate the sincerity of the music, because everything, for example, on that new record, I just blocked out the world for 3 years and did nothing else except work on that and fixate on every little detail. So I know what you mean. It is wonderful when out of the chaos comes a body of work that just really speaks to you on a deeper level, whether it be instrumental or anything else. I listen to a lot of stuff, and I had those moments myself. It is excellent.
So when this COVID stuff disappears, fingers crossed that's within the next sort of 6 months, where I know a lot of artists booking tours, all sort of starting in November, December 2021, so 12 months away. Is that likely for yourself as well, or have you booked tours and shows already that sort of coincide with that period as well? Because borders, of course, we have no idea when, international borders that is, we don't know when they're going to open up again. But man, your true bullpit must be, and I've said this to plenty as well, so I've got to say it to both of you, the live arena. Because I'd love to watch you perform live, man. It's as soon as you come up here, man, I'll make sure I'm in the audience, Gold Coast or Brisbane. I'll make sure that I'm there. But do you feel the same way, that you need to come and watch you live in order to get the full visceral Ivanyi experience?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a part of it. But especially because the guys that I play with are just in their own right, they're just so incredible. So I think there's something in there for everyone. And it's a very different thing live. Obviously, we play as a trio. It's very stripped back. It's kind of a different thing altogether. I mean, I would certainly love to tour on the new record, and I have been practicing being able to play all the stuff and so with the guys. So we're kind of in a semi kind of ready state for when that green light goes on. I personally don't know or have any good gut feeling on when that'll happen. I think there'll be a sweet spot in Australia first, which will be great. I think there'll be lots and lots of all Australian tours and Aussie acts for quite some time, which I think will be great for the whole Australian thing. And I'll certainly come out and do something when that happens. As far as international, like you pointed out, it's hard to know. I mean, skeptically, I can't imagine anything maybe happening till 2022, 23 kind of thing. It just seems really tricky with the way the world is all wired up at the moment.
I agree. I think it is that far out, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, guys at my level, touring internationally is good when it works, but it's always on a bit of a knife edge, kind of as it is anyway. So, throw in the difficulty of potentially, cancelled flights and COVID, it just all seems a bit stressful. So, I kind of reached out to all of my people at the beginning of the year and just said, look, don't consider me for, tours and all that kind of stuff until things are like, kind of in the clear, so to speak. We'll touch base when things are in the clear. Because I kept seeing, other people, booking tours that were just getting cancelled time and time again. And it didn't seem like a good idea to even kind of entertain around here. So, back to the point, as soon as that kind of Australian circuit opens up, I think that'll be a really good little sweet spot for Australian music, and I'll certainly come out and start doing some Australian shows at that time. As far as international, of course, cannot wait to get over and play all the places, but like everyone else, only when it's possible.
Have you got any touring when you're thinking about who you'd like to tour with the United States and Europe? Have you got any artists or bands that you'd love to see you guys, yourself and your musicians, team up with and go on, say, an 8-week trek with?
Oh man, that is a excellent question. I mean, I have some kind of like bucket list people that I would like to tour with that I think would make for an interesting match. And of course, I could rattle off a bunch of solo guitar players that I think are awesome, and it would certainly be a guitarist's treat. But I would love to do something with Tony McAlpine, which would be awesome.
Yeah, fantastic, dude. Yeah, great choice.
Yeah, only because that came a hair from happening in the US before this whole thing went pear-shaped. Mm-hmm. So that would have been really good, but that didn't work out. I would also love to do something with Scott Henderson, because I think his music, certainly been a big inspiration on me, and he was just amazing. It would be a bit of a mixed set, so to speak. But like a lot of the guitar guys, I'd love to do a run with Pliny, of course. That would be awesome. I think that would be really fun. Be like a good contrasting kind of sound.
That'd be a big tour, man, that one there. If you guys did all of the major regional scenes, you guys would, I know it's dollars and cents that count in these sorts of things, man, but I truly believe that if you guys teamed up for a run and you hit places like Rocky, Townsville, Cairns up here, me here on the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, and you played those venues that sort of, 100, 150 or so, like Soul Bar there on Ocean Street at Maroochydore, man, you'd make bank. Plenty of people would come out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I've seen Tony heaps of times. He's just the sickest. The guys in his band were all buds. They're just the greatest. So I think it would be a good vibe and really fun. I don't know if you're familiar with Stephen Taranto, Australian guitar player.
No, I'm not. No, I'll definitely check him out, though, on your recommendation, that's for sure.
Oh, man. He's one of the most technically and just musically incredible guitar players going. He's another Sydney boy. Put out a record. I think it was this year or maybe the year before, called Permanence. You should check that out.
I will.
It'd be great to get him out. Essentially where I'm going with this, it would be cool to put on some big, all Australian guitar tour thing.
Agreed. Yeah. We've certainly got it. I talked to a lot of the Swedes about this sort of stuff. So the guitarist, Peth and Marcus Jadell from Overterium, and I say, look, there's enough. I'm a massive fan of what Sweden as a country has done for heavy metal. They basically were the epicenter of heavy metal's resurgence, courtesy of Swedeth and At the Gates. Swedeth being the movement, At the Gates, In Flames. And I've spoken to all these guys, man, and they're all tremendous. And I've always said to those guys, you guys need to get together and honour what you guys have done, your legacy. And I think that's the same for you too, man. So I'd love to see that. This guitarist you just mentioned is Stephen Taranto, is it? And Pliny, yourself, 2 or 3 others, and just because it'd be your music, it's in a similar quadrant, but it's also different enough to make it a very interesting night.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be really cool. And another thing I would love to do is, and I was talking about this with a friend of mine just the other day, I would love to, potentially do an Australian run and unearth other Australian guitar players out there, because it could just be my ignorance, but I'm not really familiar with that many Aussie kind of solo guitar guys. And I'm sure that there's more out there. I know obviously the kind of bigger guys like those guys I just mentioned, and Ro from I Built the Sky down in Melbourne, good friend of mine. I'm not familiar with anyone else. I'm sure there are others, and I would love to discover them and see if they want to jump on and do some shows and all that. So the discovery part of it too would be a big motivator to see if we can help maybe some up and comers out or something like that. Really
Yeah, there's a lot out there. Let me tell you, there's a bunch out there, but they lack something. And I'm not being critical when I say that. It's just that, so yourself and Pliny have this X factor. You're also, having spoken to you both now, I can tell you're down to earth. So you've probably got a handle on how to deal with people as well. A lot of these shred lords in their bedrooms that are playing all this gent stuff mixed in with Marty Friedman style shred material, fantastic. And they do these YouTube videos and they sound great. But when you ask them to recreate it live, or even more to the point, fit in a scenario and do what you just described at the beginning of our discussion with your bassist and your percussionist, a lot of the time it doesn't happen. God help me, as you know me, I've been in enough bands, and as you know about being in bands, they're bloody hard to be in. Yeah, there's always somebody who's like the turd in the punch bowl. No matter how good something's going on, there's always someone that seems to intent on sabotaging it and ruining it for everybody else. And playing covers where we get paid $200 a night, it still happens, and that's good money, by the way, for playing covers, $200 and $300 a night. You know, and you play out at Billawheeler or out in the middle of nowhere, and your guitarist is an arsehole, and you're like, can't we just have fun and have a dinner and then get on the piss afterwards? You know, can't we just do that?
That's right. Everything you just described. It was the entire motivator for me to stop the whole band format. Because same thing, I'm just so frustrated with the slow progress of a band, and trying to make it, if you will, is so difficult externally, and you're constantly battling these internal issues, and that's why in the end I just was like, well, I'll just kind of do everything myself, and then I only have myself to blame for anything, and it's an amazing format of doing it, because I think progress can be quick. You can love my music all the time, but you can still enjoy all the good stuff that the band and the setting brings. I mean, sure, I miss the weekly bro jams and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you still get to go out and tour and work with the same guys when the time comes, and it's an interesting way of doing it. It might not be for everyone, but I think I've certainly found my comfortable place with it, as have a lot of other guys.
Yeah, sometimes I look back on my formative years, because I played bass first before I picked up the guitar, and I think I probably should have done it the other way around, but I loved Mark King from Level 42 and John Deacon from Queen and Steve Harris from Iron Maiden. Those were my guys, especially Mark King. I mean, that guy's just a monster. And I remember on that track, I don't know whether you remember this track, but Go West, Don't Look Down. And he plays the bass on that. And as a kid in 1986, I distinctly remember hearing that for the first time and going, I want to do that.
Yep, that was it.
That was it. That was the moment. It was literally the moment. He was not even in the video, which is like a pop video, very typical of 1986. But it's him on the track, and it's just the way he carries that groove as he does in every song that he ever plays on, because he's Mark King, and he's, in my opinion, about the best, But I often wonder if I'd heard someone like yourself back in those days when I was 8 or 9 years of age, whether I would have gone, no, I want to play the guitar instead. I mean, you're sort of drawn to your instrument. But my broader point being in all of that is that that's the problem that I had, brother, coming through, was that I had to form bands, because being a bassist who can sing a little bit, I couldn't play the guitar to the standard I wanted in a band. Effectively, you can run your own band when you do that. As a bassist, I could only be, the group bloke who organised things. But if the singer or the other guitarist doesn't turn up, we're cactus. But if I could sing and play guitar as well, if nobody else turned up, I could still entertain an audience. It'd be stressful, but you still got all of the necessary components there to get the job done. And I think you've got that. So you could do that. And I think that was the big obstacle to me, because I absolutely formed an opinion the same way you have through being in bands. And that's probably why I got out of being in originals bands. It was just way too difficult to deal with the people side of things, not the musical side of things, but the personality side of things. And it just gives you this... Yeah, it's always the same. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, because I've had this conversation hundreds of times, to be honest with you. It doesn't matter whether you're in one of the biggest bands in Seattle, like Soundgarden. This shit happens, where there's some, I'm just trying to think of, Mike, I'm writing my book at the moment, which is a podcast memoir, because I want to ghostwrite all these biographies of these wonderful musicians that nobody seems to want to write about, which is probably good for me, because I want to write like Scott Gorham's biography from Thin Lizzy,
Oh man, that's so cool.
You know, and Robin McCauley, who was Michael Schenker's singer.
That's so cool.
These are people that people just sort of don't, like, on a professional level, are overlooking. And I'm
Yeah.
probably letting the cat out of the bag here now for whoever listens to this. But I mean, I've just graduated from uni, so I've got an internship, a placement starting at the State Library.
Congratulations, man. That is epic.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, but that's
Awesome.
what I've been able to do. But I think my journey has taken me over here, on this path. But it's still about music, and I think that's the point in all of this: is that as long as you got music at the center of what you do, no matter what your creative vehicle is, you can actually realize it. You've just got to be smart about it and be prepared to sort of, if you're on the ropes, learn how to take a few punches, and when fate sort of gives you an opportunity to sort of get back up on top again, you take that. And it doesn't matter whether you do what I did and became a writer, or do what you've done, which is to become a extraordinary solo instrumentalist. So the point being, people can hear what you've got to say or read what you've got to write.
Yeah, sure. Man, I know exactly what you mean. I think music chooses people. They don't really get to choose it. And,
I agree. Yeah.
Those ones that music has chosen, there's a large luck element to those people colliding in life. Those people are kind of far and few. I think there's two types of musicians. There are those that, the music chose them and they have to do it no matter what. Like, it sounds like you included. There's definitely easier things in life you can be doing. But you have to do it, And then there are those that do it for all kinds of other reasons, like perhaps it brings them, social circle or status or, ego or whatever. When you end up working with those people, it's really challenging. You're just constantly fighting these personal kind of things, and that's what makes the interaction side pretty difficult. But yeah, at the end of the day, if music chose you, and you just have to do it, no matter what, you find a way.
Mm-hmm. Sage words, brother. I absolutely agree with you, and I think that's been the case. I worked for Telstra for many years. As the background, had this dream of potentially doing something with music, but I had mortgages and things like that to pay for. But eventually, it got to a point where there was no other choice. I literally came to the T intersection, not just a fork in the road, but this way or that way. And it was I can keep working myself to an early grave here in a job that I worked my ass off. That's the truth. I didn't shirk a bloody day in that place, but holy shit, you give so much of yourself. You end up becoming a shell of who you are because you're not being who you're meant to be. And exactly to your point, I believe too, music shows me as no doubt music shows you, and you've got to find an outlet for it. It's as simple as that. And a lot of the time that does mean retreating into your own thoughts and spending some time alone to figure it out. What you're willing, because we're all sensitive. Musicians, by their very nature, are sensitive people. It's what allows us to be creative.
Sure.
But it also makes that personal interaction side of things so bloody frustrating because you can still have the skills, but you get so emotionally attached to what you're trying to achieve. If someone's getting in the way of that, and in some cases, really fucking it up, like they're purposely fucking it up, you just think, what the hell is going on here? But mate, we've each got a life path, haven't we? I'm just grateful that I figured it out sometime in my 40s, and you figured it out a bit earlier from the looks of things. So I'm just grateful that you've done what you do and given us this great catalogue of music that you have given us, and no doubt is coming up as well.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. No, and I'm so stoked to hear that you've arrived at that place yourself, man. I mean, it's never too late, and it just feels right, doesn't it? There's no way you choose that kind of. You listen to what you're meant to be doing and you do it. You never regret it. So.
Yeah, you just find this thing comes over you, and you just feel totally comfortable within your own skin doing what you're doing. And and I like what you said before, that 3 years of just studious dedication, that's that academic approach that I was talking about. Nothing else, just focusing. That's actually what it takes. And we don't understand, but back in the day, like, I'm not going to mention any books by name because I'll stuff it up. It's not that I'm being controversial or anything, but I just don't want to stuff it up. But some books were written over decades.
Yeah.
Because the writer was just trying to figure things out. Like Jordan Peterson's first book, he said he wrote over like many years, just trying to make sure that he got every passage right. And that's actually what it takes. It's that studious dedication, and it's actually what you've got to do. Otherwise, it's not the realized vision that I think it should be.
Sure. Yeah, I think, and then also, in this kind of just happy meal reality we live in, I think unless you dedicate that much focus to something, I don't really think it will have a chance of sticking. You know what I mean? We'll just be happy mealed and consume thrown out. You know what I mean?
I understand. Yeah.
So I mean that's what it takes. It takes it's a lot of work. It's really hard. There's no lies. It was really difficult to get, for example, Omen Faustum just exactly the way I wanted it. I had to learn a lot of frustrations, a lot of practice, a lot of time. And I think that's something a lot of guys maybe don't realize, is that it takes a lot of work.
That it does, and you're living proof of that. So, mate, look, I'll wrap things up. I just, you can tell I'm a fan. I do like to fan out when I'm with an artist whose music I really enjoy. So, congratulations on everything that you've done. You're one of those artists, though, that I know your best work is ahead of you. That's not to say that what you've done here isn't brilliant, because it is on Omen Faustum. But I just know, man, that you're going to be doing this you're basically going to be doing this until the day that you step into the next dimension. And I truly look forward to what you're going to come up with, and I just hope, mate, on the next release or the next tour cycle, we have another chat and we can sort of, I can hear the progression from where you're at now to the next stuff.
Thank you, man. It's been such a pleasure talking, and I appreciate the immense kind words. And if I'm so lucky, hopefully I will be doing it all the way to the grass. So yeah, that's the idea.
You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. That interview subject was none other than one of Australia's greatest guitarists, James Norbert Ivanyi. Thanks for listening.